All right, so the next step is to store this animation in case we want to keep it later. And again, we are not going to use this animation or this one. We're going to go back now to the original animation of the plasma background, and we had stored the image for that. Let's go and open it. And I think we'll use this one here without the flare, without the glare. Okay, lose that, we'll lose the animation, and we'll turn this into an animation. And let's say we want back to the original 96 frames, right? So animation, create 96 frames, and there you go. So we definitely want to store this animation to disk, and we have the animation here. We probably don't need this one anymore. We have already saved it. This one we don't need anymore. We have saved that as well. This one we don't really care about, but you know what, I'm going to store it just in case we want to. I'm going to save it actually. I'm going to save, wait, that's not the animation. I need to have this here restored, and then I want to save that. So animation, save, and it's going to be this is a horde of there's a whole bunch of the stampede, there you go, stampede of dragons. Okay, alright, now let's go restore this, and we don't need this one. The only thing we need is the animator brush. Click that. In fact, if you did mess with the scale and other things, you may want to reset it so it has the original full size and everything here is restored. Alright, so this dragon needs to walk from left to right. That means the background needs to go from right to left, right, if we want to follow it. Well, not necessarily, but that's ideally what we'll do. So let's first go to the timeline. Let's temporarily turn the brush off. Let's go to the timeline, and what we can see here is that we have a whole bunch of filters, and what we can do, 3 clicks down on the scroll bar, and we can see the shift or the transform options. Right, so that's certainly a good one to use, simply to shift it sideways. It may not be a tileable or a seamless texture. That's okay. We'll just set things to 0 and only move it sideways. Now, if we move it sideways, we will still see the edge as it appears. It's not seamless, right? So if I translate, see here, there's a little seam here, and sometimes it's much worse. There's the same thing on the other end. So one way to avoid that is to actually scale it up, zoom in, and then you have a little bit of margin, a little bit of range in which you can go sideways without seeing that seam, without reaching it. So the filter to use for that would actually be the transform filter. Let's see with that one, because you do have a scale option here, and you have a tile option too, which you could use, and you probably should, because if you just scroll sideways, you see it's not tiling it. Now you may also need to make it seamless. After all, that's really the root of the problem. If you tile it, you can see that it's there, but you can definitely see the seams. So maybe we should take a look quick first on how to make it seamless. Right? So I'm going to go turn this into a seamless image sequence. It's a sequence of images. I'm going to store this and save it actually also, just in case we need to do that. Plasma background. And I'm going to call it plasma background 0. This is kind of where things start. Background, let's make sure we spell it correctly the first time. Background 0. Okay. Alright, so we have this and we need to make it seamless, and so one way to do that is you go to the image menu and you can make it seamless. Right? You can make that seamless. You can also make brushes seamless. If you have a custom brush, you can make seamless there. Well, the image is what we want to make. In fact, the whole image sequence, make that seamless. And so you can just use the defaults if you want, or make a little bit more overlap for that seamless transition. Of course, it will shorten the part that is on its own. But if you only move sideways, you don't need to do much on the vertical. In fact, you could completely get rid of that. Maybe just leave it at 10. What's the default? 10. Let's go 10, and let's give it a number we remember here. Let's make it 16 or 20. 10 and 20. Right. Why? Well, you want to remember that in case you need to do that again, exactly the same numbers, right? So whatever number you use here, make sure you remember them, write them down, or something like that. All right, so we use this as an use the image to make this seamless, and then it will ask us if we want to do that over the entire image sequence, since it sees that we have currently an animation, and yes, we do want that over the entire animation. So now it goes and makes it seamless. Now here's the thing, we didn't do anything else yet. This was not really a moving animation, so it was kind of an overkill to make it across the entire image sequence. If it's a short one, that's okay, but if it's a long one, you might actually do that just on the one and only image there is, make it seamless, and then create the animation. Right? You hear what I'm saying? It's basically, if you have a very long animation here, why apply that same effect across all of the images that are identical? Right? Apply it on just one and then create this animation again. Right? Okay, so now at this point though, we have a seamless image, and we can test it. We should test it. Let's go, for instance, to the transform filter transform shift, and you should be able to grab the hand and not see the seam. No more sudden change in brightness there, or you should not see a seam. All right, let's go and reset it and keep it where it is. And so we now have an animation we can create with the timeline, and we will not notice any seam as we shift it and scale it and whatever. So I'm going to go to the transform. It's always easier, simply go down 1, 2, 3 clicks and then use the transform. And so now you see if we have it tiled, it's not going to show you any sort of seam. And we can reset it and say, okay, let's go from the beginning. Let's just start with that and create a key, and then go to the last frame of the animation. Make sure it's going to be perhaps simply a linear, doesn't have to be a spline interpolation, but let's keyframe that with a slightly different position. Right? So we have it go perhaps slightly to the left. Do we want it to be loopable? Yep. So then we need to make sure that we have, I don't know, it's 100, it's 200, I don't know by how much to move it, probably by 100. Let's see, this is 0, and let's look at the particular piece, like this part here, and see where that moves to. We need it to come back here. Yeah, so that's 100. Oh, 200 actually. Looks like 200 will do it. So we'll go negative 200 all the way to the left. Kind of makes sense. I think that's what it is. I'm surprised. I would have thought maybe okay, well, let's just try 200 and keyframe that. So now we have an animation that shifts it from left to right, or from right to left by this unit. All right, let's go apply that. Now, before you apply it, make sure you have the save undo checked so that you can go back to the prior in case something goes wrong. And so here we have a whole bunch of shifting transitions, and we should now be able to play it, and it should just keep playing automatically. Now the last position may be the same as the first position. We can see a little hiccup there. It's subtle, but you can see here if I go to the end and then move to the next, which it will be the first frame, it doesn't seem to move, right? Or if I am at the first and I go back one more, it doesn't seem to move, at least nothing significant, maybe within the range of truncation errors. So this last frame we could possibly get rid of, right? Or we might not notice and we'll just keep it. All right, so at this point what I'll do in fact is I'll undo to restore the prior, and then this time for the last frame here I'm gonna go and say I don't need it exactly by negative 200, and you could perhaps go a little bit less. Now how much less? You could do the math to figure out exactly how much is it going to move, and if you have exactly 100 frames it'll be easier. If you have 96 it's going to be a little bit more difficult to do the exact math. It's nice to be in metric norms here, so let's make it 100 frames next time. Here we'll just keep it approximate and say about 195 and keyframe that, and I think I have just one frame there. Yep, one keyframe, and apply. So now we're not moving all the way. The last frame is not all the way at the beginning, but the first frame is going to be back there. If we keep this in a looping scenario, that's the idea, right? That's where this one here moves back to the next. It may be too much. That's why we only did a very approximate thing here with this.